Welcome to the ATA podcast, where we talk to former elite athletes sharing their insights and wisdom derived from successfully transitioning into life beyond the game. So a very warm welcome to the Athlete Transition Accelerator. I'm delighted to welcome back my co-host Carl and also Conor Gilsenan, a former professional rugby union player, played for Leinster, Connacht and London Irish. Very warm welcome, Conor, and thank you very much for sharing your time with us today.
James, thank you. Good to meet you, and excited to get into it.
Good man. So we have a pretty simple opening question, Conor. We're here to talk very much about life after the sporting chapter. But with that being said, we always like to ask our guests just to really reflect back on the sporting window and just pull out one or two memories now that you've hung up the rugby boots that you look back on and it brings a sense of pride. And that's going to be the opening question. But I'm also aware from our research that you did have to retire at quite an early age. And so that is something that will be very relatable to a lot of people listening to this podcast. So if you can, second part of the question, just give us a bit of an insight into what actually brought your career to a premature end for us.
Sure. So, I'll answer them backwards. So, for first one, when did I stop? So, I stopped. My last game was November 2019, playing a European Challenge Cup game against Bayonne, and tried to tackle a big Samoaner off a five-man line out, and I caught his shoulder and my temple, and I had a pretty nasty concussion. It caused a lot of problems for me, and I was recommended to stop playing the following year, which it was, it's always tough to hear that news, but it doesn't come as a total shock. Like there's a 6 or 9 month lead-in period to that where you're not making progress and you've got a lot of problems, and it feels a little bit ominous almost, but that's why I stopped. I did have, a few concussions earlier in my career, but that one was a very significant one, and one that caused a lot of problems. So parked up in 2020. But I look back at my rugby career with exactly that word you described it as. There's a lot of pride and happy memories. I would have supported Leinster as my childhood club growing up, and even on the first day going into the club and shaking hands with Brian O'Driscoll and Gordon Darcy and Leo Cullen and Jamie Heaslip and all these guys, Sean O'Brien, I was just like in the candy store. I was like, this is insane. I've been going to all these guys' games. I've done another podcast recently with an old teammate of mine, Ross Neal. So I feel like a bit of a broken record. I'll probably be repeating a lot of the same stories, but I remember Brian O'Driscoll was like, "Hi, my name is Brian." I'm like, "No shit."
Yeah.
I love you. You're my hero.
Can you sign this for me?
Yeah. So yeah, that was cool. And then I a lot of happy memories representing my country underage, under 18s, 19s, 20s. My parents loved it. They were anytime we were away in France, they came to the Junior World Cup in South Africa. They had a lot of happy memories. They made a lot of great friends out of my rugby days. Even going back to that, like I played school rugby with a school called Clongowes, and they have a really rich rugby heritage. Rob Carney, Dave Carney, Gordon Darcy, all ex um, pupils. Even Dan Sheehan, who's gone on the Lions tour now, he was after me. So they've had a lot of guys kind of come through
Yeah.
going through the system, through the school, and they were magical days as well. Like we used to get for our school's cup games anywhere between 5 and 12,000 people at them. All the school going mad. And yeah, they were really happy memories. And then I had a great time in London as well. We took a couple of really, really tough years where we got relegated, but always had a good group of guys in the change room. We stuck together, and for the most part, we didn't turn on each other or get splintered. We stuck together. We rolled with the punches, and we bounced back up first time of asking when we went down. So yeah, overall, a lot of happy memories. My highlight for London Irish was probably there was a few, but the one memory I look back on with a lot of pride and happiness was we were in the European Challenge Cup and we sent I would say a kind of like a strong second string side over to Paris to play Stade because we were struggling in the Premiership and they wanted to rest a lot of kind of the first 15. But it was still a strong enough team, but not our.
Yeah.
It was a lot of kind of young guys, and Topsy was the captain. I think I was vice captain, and then we went over and we were playing like all Stad's front runners. We're playing against Dante, Palathon, Parise. Shane Garrity was actually excellent in Irish playing for Stad at the time. And no one gave us a hope. And Topsy was setting the club record. He was going for 301 appearances or something like that. And we watched a video of him that night before we went and played them. So they play their games at like 9 p.m. or something, and they
Yeah.
get
Yeah.
the crowds in France are amazing. Like, I never had the privilege of playing at like the really big stadiums where the crowds are insane. But even underage, they just were so vocal. And there was a decent enough crowd there that night, and we think we scored 5 or 6 tries. Topsy scored, and we rolled them at home, and it was just an amazing night. We all went out together and celebrated. So that was a very long-winded answer to your.
No, it's a great one. It's a great, and
Oh, so
it's
good.
lovely to see the energy that comes through. And this is always the way, isn't it? That despite it ending in a way that you wouldn't have wanted it to, you don't lose sight of those wonderful memories, and you can see how you come alive talking about that. So, and we appreciate your candor. I know, Carl, it's something that we're going to dive into in that area
Yeah.
because this is a common situation. So many athletes we talk to have unfortunately found themselves in this highly uncomfortable, frightening, for want of a better word, situation where their career comes to an end and it's not on their terms. So I know this is something you want to touch on, Carl.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, firstly, there's quite some name dropping in there. Brian O'Driscoll, Rob
I'm
Carney,
mad for that.
Parise.
I'm mad for that. Very shameless.
But no, and then
You
just
should have
to,
loads of clickbait there.
oh,
Like,
Yeah.
absolutely,
who the
yeah,
hell is this guy? Never
but
met him.
but then just to attest to the good old Samoan. I mean, James and I have had some run-ins with Samoans, lovely people. Put them on a rugby pitch and just like trying to tackle the double-decker bus. I mean,
Honestly.
jeez, it's unbelievable people. Crazy rugby players.
Yeah.
But no,
Yeah.
just to James's point, just to dig into that period of transition. So you mentioned it was a significant knock to the head. You went through that concussion sort of protocol. And then it was a journey of sort of 6 to 9 months running into the next season about, do I continue? Can I continue? What's the advice? Just sort of take us back into that period where you were going through the points of, I'm going to play. I'm going to get back through this. You're a back rower. We all know what these back rowers' mindsets are like. I'm sure your very first thought was, it'll be right. I'll come back and play. And then when was that switch to, oh, do you know what? This isn't going as I wanted it to, as I hoped it to. And how did that affect your mindset in thinking about what comes after rugby?
Yeah. I would say I was reasonably well prepared to transition out of rugby. In terms of when I look around the squad at London Irish, I'd say I would have been one of the more active guys in terms of preparing for what's next. I grew up in a very entrepreneurial household. My parents had 2 businesses. They were publicans and undertakers. And this
You can't laugh at that.
yeah, yeah, no,
Sorry about that, Connor. It's Carl's dark
that's,
sense of humour.
no, that's the perfect reaction. I always told him his business card should have said "wind them, dined them, and buried them," but
Yeah,
he,
I
he
like
never
it.
played. But no, that sadly my dad passed away last year. But he was a fantastic businessman, and um, he had the best of both worlds. He had like the pub, which had a lot of happy memories and parties, and it was a very sociable place, a real kind of melting pot or hot spot around Mullingar for families and friends to get together and socialize, and a huge rugby following, like amazing days when Ireland and Leinster would play.
Yeah,
Pub would be packed. Like you couldn't
Yeah.
get into it. Like it's a real like strong rugby following in the town. It was really special given that I'd gone on to play professionally, that like it you would go back, and Joe Schmidt came down a couple of times with the Six Nations trophy because he had a link to Mullingar when he first came to Ireland.
Right.
I'm getting very sidetracked here, Carl. Apologies. But yeah, I came from a very entrepreneurial household, and then when I finished school in Ireland, they're really good at saying, right, yes, you're going into the academy and you're on track to be a professional player, but you have to do a degree or like something to prepare you if you don't get picked for a senior contract or if you get injured. So I went in a scholarship to UCD to do commerce. I didn't manage to finish it just with the workload, doing it alongside the rugby. And then when I had to leave Dublin, there was no option to transfer it across. So I just parked it up. And then when I went to London Irish in my first season, no education. And then in year two, I took on a degree with Northumbria University through the RPA program. I finished that. It was in like business and leadership, I think. So I was reasonably well prepared in the education front. And then once I finished that, I actually tried a few businesses. So I tried setting up an app with a friend of mine who was an ex banker at Goldman Sachs, and he had this great idea, and his business partner pulled out at the 11th hour. And I was like, I don't have much money, but I can give you a bit of time and give you access to my network. And he let me in on the business idea for a kind of a small stake in the company. We did that for 2 years with um, mixed results, I would say, and we decided it wasn't a good investment of our time to keep it going after 2 or 3 years. And he's actually set up another business now called Volunteero, which does really, really well. It's a platform for people to volunteer and get involved with charities. And then I also set up an events company where we were running brunch parties, like party brunch, love, like, yeah, brunch parties in Dublin and Portugal and London with a couple of friends who were involved in the music and events industry. I did this when I was injured, and they were great fun and actually kind of quite profitable as well. But I was like, this is not lending itself well to my rugby career. I'm boozing for I'm starting boozing at 12 o'clock on a Saturday when I'm meant to be rehabbing. So we decided to park that up after. I think we done it for one summer, maybe two. Um but when it came round to finishing with, because of this injury, it probably happened a few years earlier than I would have liked. I had an idea that, yeah, I want to do something that's kind of like business development led, people led, and I tech, because, and the reason I said tech, I'd kind of done a little bit with the app, so I got a little bit of an understanding around technology. But I had a lot of friends who were in software sales and doing quite well for themselves, kind of mid-20s, taking in very good salaries, and there's low barriers to entry. You just need to go in, show you've got a hunger, a discipline. You're able to pitch and present and build relationships. So I said that's what I wanted to do. So I had done some work experience in, like, I think the RPA had like organized a few days for me, maybe in LinkedIn and a few other kind of tech companies. So I felt like I was reasonably ready, but you can never be like fully ready.
No.
And when it came around to it being over and the lights go off per se, or the music goes off, it is a bit like, shit, this is scary. And I kind of figured out, probably we'd done maybe 5 or 6 months of rehab, and then it was around COVID. And then to your question, Carl, I was back in Ireland. I was like going for runs, and I was trying to go for runs, and I was speaking to the physios on the phones and stuff, and they were like, "Hey, just do maybe like 1K," and I was like getting headaches afterwards, and I was having a lot of issues with my balance and a bit of vertigo. And I remember just like all these small things were continually stirring it up. So I kind of felt like, right, there's a good chance I'm not going to be able to get back now, and I need to get busy. So I just started going on to LinkedIn, refining my profile, being really clear on what my skill, how my skill set from rugby and my experience doing other kind of co-curricular activities would translate into potentially into like a sales career in software. And then I just started reaching out to people who looked like they had some influence or who could help me with this, and had a story nailed down, say I've done X, Y, and Z. This is my rugby career. I'm eager to learn. Can you help me? And it was a bit of a numbers game. I was sending that out to lots of people, and a good few came back. But there was one guy in particular, a guy called Liam Channels, who was kind of a young, ambitious, now an entrepreneur, but at the time was like a sales leader. He'd worked in eBay and a few other companies. And I told him my story, and we met for lunch or something like that. And a few weeks later, he came back and said, "I've just raised some money. I'm doing a startup. We're looking for salespeople. Do you want to give it a crack?" So that was my break. I'd done that for like 12 months, and then decided I needed to get into like a bigger company where I'd learn process and be around kind of more salespeople rather than a small lean team where, companies that early stage, they need everyone to have a bit of experience and know-how, whereas I was still learning. So they're actually doing quite well. But that was kind of the path to get to where I am now at FIS.
Brilliant. And I think there's so much in there, Con, just to pull out some of the core messages. We always do this because we hear themes now, and it's so powerful, this podcast, in that it's allowing listeners to see these themes. So to your credit, something that's very traumatic, difficult, and unforeseen injury, concussive problems that brings a premature end to your career, actually listening back to you there, you were in a pretty good place, all things being considered, because of you being proactive. You've touched on being proactive on the education side of things. You've also been proactive getting onto LinkedIn. You talk about the numbers game. You've also touched on a theme that we talk about repeatedly with people, that don't put pressure on yourself to walk into the tailor-made perfect role immediate post-retirement. You've talked about a tech startup, an app that worked well. A couple of years later, though, you stepped out of it. You've talked about dabbling into hospitality, enjoyed it, but pulled back from it. You've talked about getting a break with someone because you proactively sought it out, but after a year or so deciding this is possibly not the right scale of organization for me. So you've gone through different mini transitions, if you will, in your transition to find where you are. So I think that's really important, because people who have these injuries, the clouds come down. And actually, you're a walking, talking example of, yes, the clouds came down, but because of your proactivity, it's taken you to where you are now.
100%, James. And I had a very good friend, still a very good friend of mine, a guy called Paul O'Donoghue. He played with, I think he won one or two Iron Cups with Leinster. He played with Connacht. Lives in London now. We both hang out together all the time, go on holidays together. But he was a brilliant mentor for me. More just a friend. A mentor is not the right word. He's just a friend who'd been on that transition probably 5 or 6 years before me. And he kept saying, like, he's seen me at Detective, and I was like, come on, like, I've figured it out. One shot, one kill, like, I know exactly what I'm doing. He kept saying to me, like, stop putting pressure on yourself. Like, you know, you're gonna have you're gonna have to figure these things out. You're gonna have to make loads of mistakes. You're not gonna you probably have to swap job 3 or 4 times before you start to find your groove. And then there'll probably be another career pivot. And it's so true. You're never gonna come out and just get it first time round, because it's so different to what you're doing. You gotta be willing to go out and make mistakes, and kind of be suppose vulnerable enough to admit that this is not right for me, and try something else. Like, I have a good friend, Scott Steele, who retired last year, and he was very proactive in his last year at Edinburgh, and he'd kind of built a relationship with a recruitment company. And he'd done it for a few months, and he was like, this just isn't for me. I am not a sales guy. Like, I don't love the cold outbound, and I suppose everything, the hardship that comes with that. Like, I'm more of like someone who likes getting into relationships and has like an itinerary of like work to do, rather than just like trying to pound the phones and that sort of thing. And now he's thriving in a new role where he's going into schools and working on co-curricular development skills with children, and they're building that business. They're getting into more schools, and he's kind of at the center of all of that. So like, it's not a one shot, one kill when you come
No.
out. I had a chat with another friend of mine. He's just finished this year. He's doing something. And I just got that sense that he was putting so much pressure on himself that he's on to a winner. And I was like, just relax. No one's watching. Like,
Yeah.
no, the other thing, it's like you have this thing in your head that like everyone's like, I wonder how he'll get on at post rugby.
Yeah.
Everyone's just in their own world figuring things out.
Exactly.
But no one cares.
No,
It's
everyone's
ultimately,
focused on themselves.
yeah,
You're absolutely right. And I think, but the important thing is you rule things in and out. That's what we always say, Connor. You've done it, you've
yeah.
dabbed it now. You had an interest in the tech side. So for all you've pivoted and moved through opportunities, that tech side has stayed constant, hasn't it? So just tell us now, am I right in that presumption that the company that you are now with is based around tech?
Yeah.
And again, our research could be dated, but when we were looking at the sort of 301 bar and these little
Yeah.
entrepreneurial ventures, is that still in existence? Because I'm just curious whether you've still got sort of a almost like a hybrid model here where you're in permanent employment, but you've also got some entrepreneurial ventures that run in the side alongside that. Just to tell us a bit about where you are currently.
So, okay, take a step back. I finished 2021, started a new job. No, I was finished 2020, started a new job, done that for like a year. And then an opportunity came up to go on to the Apprentice with Alan Sugar. And I had applied for it, but I got accepted the first year. It was during COVID. And then the show got cancelled. And then the following year they came back and said, would you do it? And it was a little bit apprehensive second time round because I felt like I'd started a career and it was a little bit more to lose. But having spoken to a few kind of my inner circle,
Yeah,
they were saying this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, and you're a year into your career. Just do it, and it was good advice. So I done that, and it didn't go according to plan, but it was an amazing learning experience. Of no regrets, even though there was some fallout for me personally in terms of I was probably dealing with a lot of rejection from that, and I was figuring it was a kind of a um it was kind of a turning point for me in parking up the rugby thing. So like
right,
a year had passed by. Everyone said this transition thing is so hard, and I'd gone on holidays and I'd gone into a new job, and I was like, "Man, maybe it's not that bad, I'm fine. I've still had contact with all the guys, and but when the apprentice thing didn't go the way I planned, I did have a lull or a low period for like 2 or 3 months that
right.
summer. And I remember speaking to one of the people that part of the aftercare going on those shows, and I was explaining, I was like, I'm not myself, really low, struggling to get out of bed kind of thing. And she said, she made a good observation. She's like, I don't think this is all to do with the show. I think there's probably a bit of an identity crisis or wrapping up that part of your life that finished a year ago, or really a year and a half ago at that stage. Um, so that, yeah, so that all happened, and then eventually dusted myself down. I was like, I just need to get back out there. And things started to open up again after COVID. And I'd always been talking about opening a bar in Brentford, where London Irish are moving to in London, because my dad was a publican, and I built up a good network around London, and I like the London Irish fan base very loyal. So I said in my head, I was like, this is a slam dunk. And and I'd heard through the grapevine that Topsy Ojo was planning on doing one as well. So I said, look, we might as well do this together. We're both going to be pulling from the same pot, and neither of us have any real business experience, so we can lighten the load or help each other along the way. But we both agreed to try and do it together. We looked at a couple of sites and we said, this is a huge undertaking, getting a permanent spot. Why not do a pop-up?
Yeah,
And it was actually my business plan for The Apprentice. So that's what I went on. It was like um there was a fleet of food and food and drink trucks going to sports events and festivals around the country. Um, so then I had a bee in my bonnet. I was like, well, if you're not going to invest in that, I'm just going to go make it happen, make a success of it with Topsy. So we pitched it to London Irish, to Mick Crossan and the CEO, and they loved it. We were like, it's a players' bar for the fans at the stadium. It'll build a buzz around the place, additional revenue, unique fan experience. And they gave us the green light. We got a license to do it with Brentford. And then we both put a bit of money of our own money aside, well, quite a significant amount. And then we had 6 weeks to the first game. And we went and we bought a Land Rover. We bought a horse truck. We got onto a bar, I know, like a bar wiring company or whatever, and they put like 6 taps on the side of the truck, and then we put branding on it, and we got onto like a graphic designer, and we created the logo, and we set up the company on company's house, and we got the bank accounts, and we had to do all of our health and safety. In a 6 week window, it was manic. It was so fun though. Such an adrenaline rush. Every day we were boxing things off and we were getting setbacks and we were overcoming them. We actually missed the window for the first game against Sale, which couldn't pull it together. But we had 2 weeks later, we had a game against Leicester, I think it was. We said, okay, that's the one. But everything was ready, just the branding and stuff wasn't quite right. So we'd done a test run. We'd done a test run the week of the Sale game, and we drove to the stadium, got all organized. We're driving back out the A316. Topsy's like, that's making an awful lot of noise, that truck. And
Oh,
I said, oh, it's fine. It's an old horse box. Next thing, the wheel comes off the horse box.
oh,
Nearly causes a pile up on the A316.
oh no.
It
Oh,
was a miracle there wasn't a car crash. And yeah, it was a miracle. And we ended up, but there was loads of things like that. That was the thing about that business. It was just so finicky and things were going wrong. All pipes were breaking, staff were letting you down, orders weren't arriving,
Yeah.
just got worn down. We'd done that for about a year and a half, and we done all the London Irish games, had some great days. Like that day, the first day against Leicester, I think we'd done like 24, 25 kegs. Like
Wow.
that's a publican's wet dream, you know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And me and Top Stewart were onto a gold mine here. And then there was all this just business. Then they were like, oh no, you're a fire hazard, and then moved us into a new location. And then the winter comes and people aren't willing to stand outside as much. And Leicester always come with a big crowd, and Warriors maybe not so much. So it ended up being quite a tough journey for us the next kind of 18 months. And we got a contract with Tough Mudder, and that was mixed success as well. But I just got too busy. So alongside that, I was working with FIS, who are a global fintech company. I sell accounts receivable software into enterprise companies, long sales cycles, complex sales cycles, dealing with lots of stakeholders. But I've got the hang of it, and I really enjoy it, and I'm doing reasonably well at it now. And it just was too much. Like it's a very consuming job. Like wouldn't be unusual to have like, 60 hour weeks on a very demanding week, between travel and all of that. And then you're having to drag your arse out of bed to get a horse truck and a Land Rover at Brentford for a game. And then when London Irish went bust, it was the catalyst for me to be like, I'm out. And
Mm.
Topsy has a bit more of a flexible schedule. He does teaching and TV and some other kind of PR stuff. So he's still doing it, doing summer festivals ad hoc, and who knows, London Irish might come back now at this stage. But I'm running both. I was running both of them in parallel. I'm fully focused on FIS now. Have been doing it for about 3.5 years. And yeah, really enjoy the sales side of thing. It definitely fits with my personality, although it's highs and lows, I'll tell you that for free. It's not for the
Yeah.
faint of hearted.
No, no, is that like every chapter? And I think what's fascinating listening to you, Connor, is it just gives somebody a real clarity of don't be frightened to try things. You've given us a great story there, lots of humor and an insight. But that to somebody steps inside and says, "That's perfect for me," and they run with that project, and that becomes their business, and that entrepreneurial journey continues to grow. You're not embarrassed, nor should you be, to say, "I looked at that. It started great. Actually, it became a bit of a hassle. It wasn't quite the model we thought it was, and now you found your fit." But there's been so many little turns and steps that have taken you to this point. So you've shared a lot of wisdom already, Conor, but if we were just to sort of bring things to a bit of a conclusion, a really simple question we share with every guest is reflect back on your transition and try and pull out one do and one don't, for the young Conor going back in time, or for all those athletes around the world that are still competing, that are thinking about transition. You've mentioned a few in this interview, but if you were to say, well, one piece of advice, I'd say do this to make your transition easier, and don't do this to make your transition easier. What couple of things would you reflect on? It might be reiterating something you've shared. It might be something totally different.
The thing that I would say to people who are thinking of making the change, or it's inevitable for everyone really, is that and Carl and I spoke about this on a call earlier, is that the best is yet to come. And that is, maybe that's rich coming from me. I forgot to play for Ireland or my country or go on a line store. So maybe for those guys, maybe their best days are behind them. But it's an exciting chapter. You have to look at it as an opportunity to say, I got to play professional rugby for my teens and 20s and early 30s, incredibly privileged. I have an amazing platform where people are willing to give me an opportunity or interested to hear my story, to get a foot in the door to places that people would kill to get into. And just see it as an opportunity. And also, don't be afraid to fail. Like I said, that was one of the big learnings I took from the Apprentice, is that you're going on national TV, and I thought everyone cared so much about me and how I, presented myself on that and what I was doing post rugby. And it was like, there was so much anxiety in me before that went to air, and then it went to air. And it was a real aha moment that I was like, nobody gives a shit. It's like everyone is on their own journey, and most people want the best for you, but they don't really care if you fail or if things don't work out, because everyone's got their own problems. So don't be afraid to throw yourself into something. Once you give it your all and you give it a crack and you're not letting anyone down intentionally, just try things and put yourself out there and try to look at it as an opportunity, because it really is it gives you such a great platform. But that, I would also say that platform does have an expiry date, that you have to go and become an SME or an expert at something else, because there are very few jobs out there as coaches where the numbers stack up and you can do it as a true career, or as a PR person, as a pundit. There's a shelf life to that. I think you really do got to become your own businessman in a new or woman in a new career reasonably quickly. You could probably got 3-5 years to figure it out. Otherwise people don't really, that window starts to expire and people go, why hasn't this person really thrown themselves into something new? So
yeah, which you've certainly done, Conor, as we listen to your story. And it's interesting that what you framed there. For anybody listening, I would endorse what you've said. What's top of your stress list? And for any of us, it's not, how is such and such doing over there? The reality is our stresses are either about our personal lives, our businesses, our performance, the people we love in our inner circle, somebody's health, whatever it may be. But very few of us have got a high level of focus on, I wonder what my former teammate's doing, what Conor's doing over. We're not. And yet we all get sort of brainwashed into thinking everyone's watching, everyone's thinking, no, they're not. And it's the same when you're on the field, isn't it? You think everyone's thinking about what no, they're not. They're all thinking the same thing. I don't want to make a mistake. I want to play well. And so, yes, there's a shared objective in a team. We all want to win and we all want to contribute. But the sooner we can get past this barrier of, being frightened to fail because everybody's watching and everyone's got a view. You know, you did it on a high level, you know, good for you. You got on The Apprentice. All right, you got voted off. Everyone gets voted off at some point. That's the nature of the show. But then it affects you mentally because of these external perceptions of what society thinks. Actually, most people are thinking, good for you. You had the courage to get on the show, put yourself out there, which millions of people wouldn't. Who cares when you came off the show? You got on it. And it's the same with professional sport. You got to that level. Millions of people dream of getting to that level, whether your career is 1 year, 2 years, or 15 years. You got to a level. Be proud of that. But stop letting fear be a barrier. So I think you will have helped a lot of people today, Conor, listen to that and go, oh, I'm hearing it again. Don't let fear of what people think stop you experimenting.
100%. And the other thing, just think of like my journey out of it, back to my friend Paul O'Donoghue. He was like always very interested in my career when he finished up. And he would always remind me, like, you need to enjoy this. Like, it's so special what you're doing. And it when it goes, it goes. And he was saying you get way too wound up about selection, contracts and stuff. Just go in and enjoy it. You're in a very unique position where you're paid to go in and work out with your friends and play a sport that you love, and you get people come to watch you. It's such a cool job. Like, go in and be grateful for that rather than like, oh, the coach isn't picking me and I'm stressed out my contract.
Yeah.
And I actually did start to do that in my last season, and I was playing the best rugby ever as a result of it. And I would go in and be just like, yeah, maybe Deck didn't pick me, or pissed off because Blair or Max, one of the guys I compete with, had the jersey and training. But I'd be like, I'm just going to go out and give it my best. And my mindset, I was enjoying it so much more. And I say that to guys, there are not actually a ton of guys left playing that I'm still friends with, but I tried to say it to them without being preachy, is that it's really cool what you do.
Yeah.
And just enjoy it, because
No, it's great advice. It's great
goes
advice.
away so quickly.
And we hear that a lot. And I look back, exactly the same thing. You put pressure on yourself every training session. Don't make it your mindset. Don't make a mistake. Don't drop this. Get the line out right. Don't do this. Be in the right place. And it goes by in a blink. And I wish I'd enjoyed it more. And I think that can, whether you're a British Lion, as you say, or whether you're in the junior ranks in an academy structure, we hear it all the time. I wish I'd enjoyed it more. So the more we hear it, the more people express it. Hopefully, the more people embrace it. So, Conor, I know you've got a hard stop today. It's been a pleasure talking to you. For those people that have enjoyed listening to you, might want to reach out, might want to connect with you. What's the best place to find you? Where do people go to?
LinkedIn is probably the best. I've gone on a sabbatical from Instagram. It wasn't helping my my mental health, so I'm very contactable on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Well, thanks again. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, Conor. Wish you the best of luck in what you're doing now, and we appreciate you sharing that journey of transition with us.
Thanks for having me, guys. All the best.
Thanks for joining us this week on our ATA podcast. If you found this conversation insightful and it resonates with your journey, please subscribe, follow the show, and stay connected with us for more insight, resources, and information on how we at ATA are supporting your preparation for life beyond the game.